Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Tragedy in Minneapolis. 2 children killed, 17 others injured after a shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Church first thing this morning. That city's mayor delivering an emotional message today.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
The FBI, now a part of that investigation, calling it domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. We are live here on The Hill throughout the hour with the very latest. Also tonight, the last president to sign a major crime bill was Clinton. Will the next be Trump? Why the president is now suggesting that could be his next big law. And it is the biggest company in this entire country, really in the world. And it just got even bigger. We'll show you tonight where Nvidia is headed next. But first tonight here from The Hill, bullets flying in an unthinkable attack at church. Children at a Catholic school sitting in their pews. The first all-school mass of the new school year at Annunciation Catholic Church at Catholic School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then the church glass shattered. Students struck by bullets, teachers trying to save lives.
Within seconds of this situation beginning, our teachers were heroes. Children were ducked down. Adults were protecting children. Older children were protecting younger children. We lost 2 angels today. Please continue to pray for those still receiving care. We can't change the past, but we can do something about the future.
At this hour in Minneapolis, 2 children, ages 8 and 10 years old, are dead. Area hospitals treating the survivors, and the federal government is describing this as a hate crime. Our Kelly Meyer at the White House tonight in a moment, but first to our Alex Capriello with the very latest this evening. Alex?
Yeah, the Minneapolis police chief has identified the shooting suspect as 23-year-old Robin Westman. That's a transgender woman who formerly went by Robert. Police say Westman used 3 different guns, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, to open fire on unsuspecting children and worshipers at this morning's 8 a.m. mass. Police say Westman barricaded the doors to the church with a 2x4 before firing shots indiscriminately through the church windows. Police have confirmed there were 19 victims altogether. 2 children shot dead in the pews of the sanctuary. Their ages 8 and 10 years old. 14 of the victims injured in the gunfire were also children, ages 6 to 15, and 3 adults in their 80s were also shot. After opening fire, Westman then turned the gun on himself. Police Chief Brian O'Hara with strong words of condemnation about this attack. Take a listen.
This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible.
As for the motive, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says his team is still reviewing Westman's social media footprint, searching homes that are tied to him, and also combing over a video manifesto left behind to try to get some sort of clarity there. I'm going to have a lot more details about the contents of that manifesto later on The Hill. Blake?
Alex Capriello live for us tonight. Alex, thank you. Over to the White House now. President Trump briefed earlier today, comments from the administration throughout the day as well. The flag there lowered at half-staff. Our Kelly Meyer live tonight from the North Lawn. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. So we haven't heard from the president on this since that proclamation you just mentioned this afternoon, ordering flags at the White House and across the country to fly at half-staff until sunset on August 31st. And a senior White House official telling me today that Attorney General Pam Bondi was here at the White House today along with the Vice President, J.D. Vance. And then Minnesota Governor Tim Walz confirmed that later, that the president, along with the AG and the VP, called him today to express their condolences and offer their support. Here's more from the governor.
Well, what happened here today will not be gone. Minnesotans will not step away. We'll stand with this community. We'll redouble ourselves to do the best we can to understand what we can do to prevent any parent from having to receive the calls they received today.
And And we haven't heard reaction from the president or the White House to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirming that the shooter's rifle magazine had, quote, "Kill Donald Trump" written on it. Blake.
Kelly Meyer live tonight at the White House. Kelly, thank you. All that as the Minneapolis community is trying to make sense and process what happened today. Here was the mayor, Jacob Fry.
Do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster.
Joining me now, Art Roderick, former U.S. Marshal, with us tonight here on the Hill. Hi, Art. Nice to see you. Sorry under these circumstances.
Yeah.
The investigation from here goes where?
Well, at this point, we have a dead shooter, so they can take their time here and really go into in-depth in this individual's background and find out the motivation. There's a couple things here that strike me right off the bat. Number one, this individual's weapon selection. He picks a AR type, M4 type weapon for long distance shooting. He's got a shotgun for something in mid-range, a little closer, and then he's got a handgun for up close and personal contact. So this was very well planned out. He selected the weapons that he thought he was going to need at this particular incident. And then from there, the amount of rounds that this individual had was pretty massive. I mean, we saw the pictures of the ammunition laid out and the weapons laid out on the bed that he had as part of his manifesto. So this is a pretty well planned crime, and he picked the soft target.
I can't help but continue to think, Art, that we are talking about kids.
Yes.
The two who were killed today, 8 and 10 years old. The more than a dozen taken to a hospital. Again, kids.
Yes.
And as law enforcement will go do what law enforcement does in these scenarios, what is being done, or what is traditionally done at that level to try to help these children?
There is grief counseling. This is so difficult to deal with. We have all this training out there for first responders. We have training for the public. But how do you teach kids this age to run, hide, or fight? You can't. It's impossible to teach them this type of reaction to these incidences. So they have to rely on adults. And it sounds like, as always, these adults did the heroic thing and tried to cover these children. So this is going to be years. I mean, we've heard students from Columbine, going back that far, that still will carry this with them for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, these kids will have to deal with that too.
There were a couple press conferences today, Art, in which, the FBI director, Kash Patel, came out and said and called this domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting the church, the Catholic Church there, the Catholic community. The police chief there on the ground was asked about that, and he basically said, we don't know a motive yet. And I wonder what you make of the two differing messages.
Well, I think pretty much they're aware of some type of motive. Whether they want to publicize it or not at this point in time, that's a different story. But I mean, we saw the last page of that manifesto, and I can tell you that the FBI came out a couple of hours ago and said this is a domestic terrorism, this is a hate crime. So there had to be something in the body of that manifesto that reflected that type of mindset for this individual. So I think that's why we heard the FBI come out fairly early and claim this is a domestic terrorism hate crime.
What are you expecting tomorrow as this moves forward?
We're going to be dealing with funerals here, a couple funerals. We still have, 17 people that are in the hospital in different varying states of stability or critical incidents. So this is what we're going to be dealing with the next few days. There's not going to be any trial here. The Bureau will continue to collect evidence and do their usual studies on this type of individual, but hopefully they'll release some information as we move along over the next couple weeks as to exact motive.
Art Roderick, former U.S. Marshal, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, still to come tonight. And we'll be on this story throughout the hour as developments unfold, but a live look right now. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, President Trump ordering flags flown at half staff after that shooting. Just hours before the tragedy, the president said that he and Republicans are working on a comprehensive crime bill. Both sides of the aisle next. Is it what the country needs right now, as the president says, or is there something else at play here? And as the National Guard continues to patrol the nation's capital, the Democratic mayor here in Washington today speaking out and giving a message. I don't know, maybe you wouldn't have expected this.
We are unique in that we're always going to have a different relationship with the federal government because we are the seat of the nation's capital. And so that's different.
And as I mentioned, we're live in Minneapolis throughout the hour. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Berman. The news continues on the other side of the break, just 4 minutes out. See you then. On NewsNation, live look, right side of the screen, Washington, D.C. That building behind me, obviously a little familiar in this town. Other side of the screen, the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. Both those cities in the sights of President Trump as he looks to fight crime. The president floating the idea of deploying the National Guard troops there into Chicago, saying the governor should ask him to do it. But the Illinois governor, Democrat J.B. Pritzker, telling the president not to come to Chicago. And in D.C., though, a different story today. Mayor Muriel Bowser acknowledging that crime is down since the president took over.
The difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. This surge has been important to us.
It comes as the president says he's working with Republicans in Congress on a comprehensive crime bill. Details, though, TBD. We're going to hear from both sides of the aisle here. Connor Lamb, former Democratic member of Congress, with me in a moment. But first to the congressman from the state of Florida, Carlos Jimenez, a Republican, member of the Homeland Security and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, nice to see you as always. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. So this idea of a crime bill, right? There hasn't been one since Clinton was in office back in the 90s. What do you think it would look like?
Well, first, let me say that offer my condolences to the families of all the victims up in Minneapolis. My heart goes out to them, and our hopes and prayers are with their families. And then obviously those two young kids that were killed are tragic and senseless. And, I need to see what the motivation was and all that. But, you send your kids to school, they're in mass, and that's the last thing you think it's ever going to happen to them. So first, my condolences. So now back to the crime bill, and I think what's going to happen is I believe, because I don't have any of the details either, but it's got to be something about additional police officers, additional help, additional resources offered either in the way of money or people to establish some kind of a baseline for how American cities should be protected and what we expect of American cities. We expect them to be safe. We expect you to be able to walk in your community and be safe. It doesn't matter what community you live in. You have the right to peace, and you shouldn't be afraid to walk out your front door. And so it's unfortunate that in some cities that we have, that's not the case. It's certainly in some neighborhoods. You don't know. You're taking your life in your hands when you walk out that door. And somebody, you could be caught in a drive-by or things. And Chicago is a great example of something that's gone terribly wrong. And obviously the people that are running Chicago, this has been a problem that's been going on not for months, but for years. And they haven't been able to get a handle on it. And the people of Chicago, the citizens of Chicago, deserve peace and they deserve to live in safety.
There was a comment that was made here on NewsNation about an hour ago. It came from Mark Short, who was President Trump's first director of legislative affairs. He's on this show all the time because he understands, he's on the show for lots of reasons, but he understands the link between the Trump White House and Congress. And here's what he said, which caught my attention, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
There's not going to be a big comprehensive crime bill. It's just, you have one big beautiful bill. It's the only major piece of legislation happened so far this year. And I think that the president knows that, but it's still a good say, I'm calling for it, so Democrats then come out against it.
Do you think that's the reality?
No, I don't think that's a reality. Look, a lot of people have been selling our conference short, thinking that we could not get the big, beautiful bill across the finish line and all that. It's impossible. It'll never happen. And Speaker Johnson, makes the impossible happen. For him, it's kind of that happens every single day. And so, yeah, I think that we're going to work on crime, and we need to work on crime, especially helping some of these bigger cities that have a huge crime problem. Again, look, the number one duty of government is to protect its citizens. And
do you
obviously,
do you think it could be bipartisan? Could be bipartisan, though, because I hear you mention our conference, meaning Republicans. Yeah. Normally, when you get something massive, in very few exceptions, it's really not bipartisan. But this is an issue that the polls show Americans believe is a real and legitimate one. You think it could be bipartisan?
Do I think it should be? Yes. Do I think it will be? No. And I'll tell you why. Because because if it's Donald Trump has his name on it, the Democrats are adverse to it. They suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, no matter if he's right or wrong. I mean, and so if Trump says, "Hey, the sky is blue," no, it's not blue, it's purple. And that's just the way it is. And so I would hope that I'm wrong. Maybe you'll have some that are in swing districts and crime-ridden areas that say, "Yeah, I've got to vote for this," even though it's Donald Trump that's going to sign it at the end. But do I believe that it's going to be a bipartisan effort? No, I don't. I've seen this too often in Congress.
Okay.
Look, I've got to make a comment. Look, I was mayor of Miami-Dade County. Okay, Miami-Dade County is 2.8 million people. It's about the same size as Chicago. Okay, we have about half the number of police officers when you add them all up with all the municipalities and the county itself, and we have about the same number of people. We had about 1/4 of the homicide rate, all right? And it's a big urban city and the whole thing. And so obviously Chicago is not doing something right. And so the president is saying, hey, this is out of hand. And those are American citizens. And I believe that he's right. The governor should ask for help. Look, when I was a young, one final thing. When I was younger, I was involved in the biggest riot in Miami-Dade County history. And you know what? The police department couldn't handle it. We needed the National Guard to come in, and even with them, it took a couple of days to bring it all under control. Obviously, you're not handling it. Ask for help. Swallow your pride and save some lives, because that's your primary job.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman there from South Florida, Carlos Jimenez. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I told you, other side of the aisle. We wanted to hear from both sides. Connor Lamb, former congressman from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, with us tonight here on the Hill with the other side of the aisle perspective. What'd you hear there? Do you think the congressman is right, that the reality is that while this should happen in some form, it'll be Republicans go at it alone, and Democrats are just going to fight the president no matter what?
Well, I can't really think of an example where Trump has, in good faith, tried to work cooperatively with Democrats on a major bill like this. He really tends to just say things, but then retreat the position of he wants to do what he wants to do. I mean, he just said on TV yesterday, I'm the president, I can do whatever I want. The reason that someone like Clinton got a crime bill done is because you have a U.S. Senate and you have to persuade some members of the other party to be for it. And he wasn't afraid to do that, which means making compromises. That's how most presidents have ever been. But Trump doesn't show any signs of wanting to do that on any issue. And all the signs he shows are that he wants to control things.
Do you think, Connor, that the comments today from Muriel Bowser, in which he said, you know what, crime is down, do you think that has some Democratic leaders going, wait a minute, maybe we should listen?
Well, I don't think so, because it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you put that many uniforms and officers on a street in a short period of time, that it will deter some crime. The objection has always been, we can't sustain that, and we don't want to sustain it. Like, we don't want to be a society that has the military walking the streets of our major cities. We've never been that way. So what we want are well-paid police officers who can really do their job. They're better than the National Guard. But to get that, you need a president who's able to put together a bill to pay them, because a lot of cities like Chicago can't afford them.
Bowser today, by the way, the mayor is saying they're trying to hire some 500 police officers here in Washington. I'm running out of time. I appreciate the perspective. I wanted the audience to hear from both sides. Connor Lamb, you know you'll be back again soon. To the congressman as well. Thank you both for your time. Appreciate it. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. We continue to keep our eyes on Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Annunciation Catholic School there. The very latest when the Hill returns.
Families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry's response today to the tragedy in his city. 2 kids, just 8 and 10 years old, dead tonight from the shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School Church. 17 others injured. The FBI calling the shooting domestic terrorism and a hate crime. Our Alex Capriello with the very latest tonight. Alex?
Yeah, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem confirming the authenticity of a video manifesto that circulated online throughout the course of this morning, a warning that some of the images we're about to show you might be considered disturbing. That video manifesto, 11 minutes long, and includes harrowing images and audio alleged to be gunman Robin Westman. Westman showing off a cache of weapons with frightening words written on some of the magazines like, "Where is your God?" "For the children," and "Kill Donald Trump." The video auto-published to YouTube moments before the attack and then quickly taken down by federal authorities. The Minneapolis police chief, in the meantime, says the audio, the writings, and the video will all be used to determine a motive in the coming days.
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings. That content has since been taken down with the assistance of the FBI, and it now remains under active review by our investigators.
Search warrants are currently being executed at the church as well as various locations linked to Westman. Also under investigation, the ties that the Westman had to the church and to the school, although recently discovered social media posts reveal his mother used to work there. Blake?
Wow. Alex Capriello with us tonight again. Alex, thank you. Joining me now, NewsNation national security contributor Tracy Walder, former FBI special agent, former CIA officer as well, and former FBI supervisory special agent Rob Chadwick. Rob, thanks for being here. Tracy, it is always great to have you. Sorry, both under these circumstances. Tracy, where does the FBI go from here tonight?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Blake. I think there's a couple different places ultimately they have to go. Motive is important here, but obviously the shooter has been neutralized. So yes, it's not a threat to the public. However, the core of this investigation, is this a hate crime? Who was this individual talking to online? Where did they get radicalized from? I think that is incredibly important because we are seeing almost a trend. I'm seeing a lot of young males with Cyrillic writings in some of their manifestos, and I would be really interested to see where this is coming from and if the FBI can do anything to stop it.
Rob?
Yeah, Tracy's exactly right. This will certainly involve the behavioral analysis unit, and there's a specialty unit within BAU that will study this and any writings, any type of communications that this person's had in the last weeks and months to see if there's any sort of telltale signs or leakage that they can possibly look to and maybe even uncover other potential collaborators or conspirators.
The FBI Director Kash Patel posted this today. He said the FBI is investigating this shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. But then when the police chief there in Minneapolis was asked about this very post, here's what he said.
So the question is this an investigation into a hate crime against Catholics? We don't have a motive at this time. Obviously, we're open to any possibility.
Tracy, that sounded like two very different lines, really, from the head of the FBI and then the head of the police department there on the ground. Square that for me if you can.
I'm not not sure that they're vastly different. I think the police chief is more erring on the side of caution, which honestly he should be doing. If you want me to be completely transparent with you, he's probably doing the right thing. However, now that these YouTube videos have surfaced and the stills have surfaced, and what we've seen him writing on some of his weapons, particularly the anti-Israel, expressing a desire to want to kill Trump, I'm not certain that this was the focus of his hatred, but I do think that there is clearly some kind of a hate crime or domestic terrorism element here.
Rob, what's going to be done to help the children?
Well, that's the most important thing here, right? Is obviously it'll surge as many resources as humanly possible to help these kids process this, help their parents, help them process this. It's just something that, any human being is going to have a very difficult time ever getting over and forgetting. But any resource that available from state, local, federal government is going to be there. But, Tracy's exactly right. I think that what Director Patel was focusing on there is, let's not narrow this initially. Let's have a broad perspective on what this could possibly be. I mean, we do know there was a familial connection at the church with I believe the shooter's mother. And so, I don't think we want to rule anything out early. It's so early in this investigation. And so, the local police chief is just trying to get through the day and make sure everyone's safe, that people are accounted for, that they're getting the help they need. And then, of course, the Bureau can come in and other agencies come in to bring all the other follow-on resources to help people try to get their lives back.
Rob and Tracy, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Appreciate the time. As always, I want to bring in now Pat Scallon. He lives, as I understand it, as close as you might be able to get to that church. Pat's family went to the school for years, lives across the street, ran toward the building there when you heard the bullets. Pat, thank you for being with us tonight. I wonder, sir, how you are processing all of this.
Well, it's been a long day, but right now my heart and mind is with the families who have lost, especially the families that have lost their children, and also the ones who children were injured, and for that matter, the whole Annunciation School community and anybody else that was hurt in this incident. I just feel very badly for them, and I just wish them the best under very tough circumstances.
You're a member of the community, obviously.
Lifelong.
Lifelong. You know the school well. I'm guessing you know a lot of the families that have children there.
Not now. Unfortunately, I'm in the older part of my years, so I've been detached a little bit, but I do know a couple of families there. But
fair enough. Yeah. As you know the community, what's needed tonight?
It's time to grieve, and feeling sad is appropriate now, and I know people will do that. But then I just hope that the community, and it is a strong, resilient community, so I have the utmost confidence that people will rally. This will never go away in people's minds and in those poor children's minds, but hopefully they can start beginning to focus on the positives and go to the wonderful things that this community really is and does, and focus on that and just bring this back. It's a tremendous school. It always has been. It's a great parish. And I just hope somehow, some way that people can refocus on that. It'll take some time, but it'll happen. I'm confident of it. I know this community will.
Pat, you heard the gunfire and you ran toward that area. Now that it's been several hours and you sit back and you think about it, can you explain to me what that, and to our audience, what that moment was like?
Yeah, I mean, once I realized, and it took me just a matter of about 20 seconds and about 15 to 20 shots to realize what was going on and where it was happening. And I just got up, and I said, I just got to go up there and help in whatever way I can. And I just did it, I mean, it was just in my heart to do that. And it was the right thing to do. And I would hope other people would have felt the same way. But, I was angry too. And that was I knew somebody messed with my community and did some terrible things. I didn't know how bad it was going to be till I got there. And unfortunately, it wasn't, I don't want to overlook the tragedy and the horrific scene, but I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. But again, it was bad. And people lost their kids, and we can't lose sight of that.
You did, Pat, what I think most people would hope would be brave enough inside themselves, God forbid, if they were ever put in that moment, an adult running to try to help out vulnerable kids.
No,
and as you mentioned,
it was just an easy thing to do. I mean, I think most people would have reacted that way.
And as you mentioned tonight, you think about the kids, so many of them, and their families going forward. Pat, I wish you all the best. And I thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Take care.
You as well, sir. All right, coming up tonight, still on the other side of the break. There's a big story here in this town that this country continues to talk about, which is what to do about crime in major cities. And there actually happened to be a pretty big U-turn today involving one of the most prominent politicians in this country. I'll show it to you. I'll explain it to you when The Hill returns.
Thank you for making NewsNation America's fastest growing cable network in all of television.
Let's get after it.
The place where left and right come to be reasonable. NewsNation, news for all Americans.
Washington as well, for which we learned today that maybe U-turns are in fact legal. I want you to listen here to the Democratic Mayor Muriel Bowser's latest assessment of President Trump's calling in of the National Guard.
This is what we think in just a couple of weeks of experience has worked. Having more federal law enforcement officers on the street. We know that we have had fewer gun crimes, fewer homicides, and we have experienced an extreme reduction in carjackings.
How about that? Quite the 180, possibly, to one of the more consequential endorsements of Trump's actions with the National Guard, considering who it's coming from, the Democratic mayor here. So is crime in U.S. cities becoming a winning issue for the president? Full panel here with me now. Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill. Jessica Anderson, former budget official in the first Trump administration. Hannah Brandt, NewsNation political correspondent. And Dan Cannonen, former Battleground States director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you all. Thanks for being in. Appreciate it. We got some polling on this today, and it was a little bit of a mixed bag because on the issue of sending in the National Guard troops, the president there underwater. But how about this? His handling of crime? He's above water there in an AP poll. And overall, Jessica, the country says the issue of crime in major cities is something that deserves attention. And then you hear that from Muriel Bowser today.
Yes, and I think what the mayor is pointing out is what we've all felt as residents here in D.C. I work here, I go to church here on Sundays. This is the safest Washington, D.C. in August in its history. And that is a big deal. Someone that even the mayor, who 2 weeks ago had major concerns about President Trump bringing in this force to the city, is now supportive.
She also had some concerns, though, about ICE and the National Guard being here versus police.
Of course, but I actually think Trump is differentiating these issues, and these polls get to it, right? The general consensus is that Americans want safety and security. The details of how to do it vary based upon how Trump has chosen to exercise that for law enforcement.
So do we hear more? I mean, you're not going to hear Gavin Newsom or J.B. Pritzker saying any of that anytime soon, or Brandon Johnson there in Chicago. Yeah. But do you expect more Democratic mayors to sort of lean into this, or no?
Well, look, I mean, Trump is doing this partly because he wants to debate on crime in his terms, right? Mm-hmm. He's better on crime than other issues in the Q poll or the AP poll. I mean, he's really underwater in everything else, the economy, foreign policy. And he's I think it was 31-58 with independents in that Q poll, very bad numbers. But on crime, he can draw Democrats into a debate. And I think if Democrats come in and say there is no crime in these cities, you know, everything is great, that's not a good posture for them. And Bowser has to be especially careful because she's in the federal district and has less authority than like a Pritzker has. But the other night you had the Attorney General from Illinois on your program, and he made the point that the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago has been asking for years for ATF and the FBI to come in collaboration with the city and with the state on crime reduction, trained agents who understand violent crime reduction capabilities with tools and the force to do that. The big beautiful bill cut 2,000 agents, $500 million, 30% reduction in ATF. That's the kind of support that a guy like Pritzker or the mayor of Chicago would need. This is more performative for Trump to get the issue and the optics.
But at the bottom line, do Americans say, yeah, I understand your explanation, I just want my streets safe? And they hear the president doing this and they just see two different messages.
Yeah, I think he's banking on the idea that you can draw people into a debate on crime, better turf for him. And I think Democrats should say, look, we want to meet you there on crime, but as Connor Lamb said, to get a bill done, you're going to need a lot of support from the other side. Yeah. You're going to have to get a consensus. I just don't think Trump's going to do that.
Well, I think we haven't seen the president have any problem pressuring Republicans in Congress to work to his will. So I think it depends on when they come back. If President Trump wants to keep the focus on this, and this week would indicate he absolutely does, do we see him take next steps to make it into legislation?
I think in DC, you have to actually be realistic about what the residents of DC think. You were talking about polling earlier on. There was a Washington Post poll done. 79% of Washington, DC residents were opposed to the deployment of the National Guard. A city that voted more than 90% for Kamala Harris, viewing this, I think, as a personal power move on Trump's part.
And I would add in all of the polling that I've seen that most people oppose federal takeovers of local police departments. So they might support how Trump is handling this.
So in a way, is it kind of like immigration? Like at the end of the day, the president nailed that issue during the election. And then as to Jessica's point, it's the details in there of how you go about implementing it that determine whether or not this is viewed as a success or not.
Look, I think he understands TV better than any president in history, obviously.
You saw Monday and Tuesday. It was before the cameras nonstop.
Yeah, and look, what he can do is put people in camouflage, in uniforms, with guns, in streets, get the images of pulling guys out of cars, looking tough, controlling monuments. All that stuff gives him the ability to have that pulpit and talk about crime on his terms. It's actually not going to solve the long-term issues, which would take community policing, resources, and a partnership.
I'm actually so glad that Dan brought this up, because we've been talking about the kind of the camaraderie and all of the attention that the National Guard and the tanks, and you saw them at like all of in front of the Smithsonian's, in front of all of the museums, and thinking like, is that even worth it? And I went back to kind of a military doctrine, which is that you reveal to deter, right? You reveal what it is that you're trying to do to deter more crime, and then you conceal to actually use the force. So in the parts of the city, I learned this last week, where the most intense work against the homicides, the carjackings, everything that the mayor just espoused, all of those people are in undercover, they're in plain clothes, and they're going street by street. It's the deterrent that we're seeing to deter the force and to deter future crimes is what you see of the tanks in front of the Smithsonian.
Niall, let me leave you with this, because our Joe Khalil asked Mayor Bowser today, would you recommend that other cities accept the Guard or federal resources as has happened here? And she said, let me just say this, we're unique. I'm the mayor of Washington. My comments relate to Washington, D.C. and so on. She could have said, no, don't, to other Democratic mayors, but she didn't, and I thought that was kind of notable.
Well, she's, though, in a vulnerable position in a broader sense because of the control and influence that the federal government has over the District of Columbia. She's in a different position to someone like Brandon Johnson in Chicago, Eric Adams, a whole different ballgame in New York, but all the two other big city mayors.
All right. Thank you all. Story that continues to unfold. Interesting comments from the mayor today. Appreciate it. Still to come. Other side of the break, did the biggest company in the world just get a whole lot bigger? I'm going to explain to you on the other side what happened with Nvidia today and why you should be watching it. Plus, what is trending if you're just getting home when we return. Just getting home, trying to catch up on the big stories of the day. Here's what's trending right now on thehill.com. Of course, we continue to follow the scene in Minneapolis. 2 children dead, 17 injured at that school shooting at a church. Elizabeth Vargas will have the very latest here on NewsNation in 2 minutes at the top of her program. This trending as well on the Hill. RFK Jr. says the agency will reveal causes of autism in September. How about that? And you know they say that you can indict a ham sandwich? Well, apparently you can't indict a sandwich thrower because prosecutors failed to get felony indictment. Remember that person who threw the sandwich at a National Guard member? Tried to indict him. Couldn't. For more of those stories, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com or scan the QR code on your screen. All right, time for my take now. The main event today at the corner of Wall and Broad involved the biggest company in the entire world, Nvidia, the AI chip maker that has risen to a more than $4 trillion behemoth, reported its quarterly earnings this afternoon. And the headlines included this: Nvidia's revenue over the last 3-month period, just 3 months alone, north of $46 billion. Now, it's not apples to apples, or in this case, you could say chips to chips. But to put that in a little context here, the entire market cap, for example, of Target or Kroger, both around $45 billion. And Nvidia says the next 3-month period, sales could blow past that, hitting somewhere around $55 billion. Now, powering most all of this, data centers, the data center businesses, those chips and processors that are helping power the AI revolution. AI right now kind of seems like the Wild West. But in the heart of D.C., at least, the political winds have been driving the leaders of the top companies to the White House, and quite frequently. Even the First Lady this week issuing an AI challenge for students. Now, the direction all this heads, no one knows. But in just the last couple hours, a reminder of just how big and how fast